And this talk title came to me, it's very interesting doing what I do. And many of us have had opportunities to speak and to facilitate workshops. And sometimes I think, it's all been said, or there's really how else to say it. And then this idea came to me. I was actually listening to a speaker at the moment, and she was talking about four-letter words, right? Like words that we don't want to say. And it occurred to me that we often think of hope as something that's really desirable. We want a lot of hope. But I think that hope, or I'm going to explore the possibility that hope is one of those four-letter words. And it's loosely based on this quote from Eckhart Tolle: the past gives you an identity, and the future holds the promise of salvation, of fulfillment in whatever form. Both are illusions. I'm going to read it one more time. The past gives you an identity, and the future holds the promise of salvation, of fulfillment in whatever form. Both are illusions. So a very simple way to say it is the only moment that actually exists is this one. Right here, right now, there is no fear and there is no hope. There's only present moment awareness. And then the mind creates a whole paradigm, a whole point of view, a whole story around the past, who we are, what has molded us to be the person that we are, the family we came from, the part of the world we come from, our political affiliation, what religion we grew up in. And as Eckhart Tolle says, that is the illusion of the mind. Only if we understand the nature of reality. So if I believe I am my thoughts or opinions, then that is indeed the truth. In unity teachings, we call that relative reality versus ultimate reality. Ultimate reality is we came into this world as a spark of divinity, and that's the truth of who and what we are. All else is illusion. And sometimes it can be so profoundly simple that our minds want it to be more complicated. No, I need a whole process. I need the steps, if you will. We were talking about the 12 steps earlier. Like, what are the steps to enlightenment? What are the steps to awakening? How do I attain something? I want hope for a better future. One of the things that we know in New Thought is that words hold significant power. We believe in New Thought. Unity teachings tell us that thoughts create reality. And for any of you who have heard me speak before, I like to be a bit provocative and say, well, actually, thoughts don't create reality. Frequency creates reality. The thoughts are an indicator or some information for us about the frequency that we're holding. So if I'm walking around saying, the world is a difficult and horrible place, that's an indicator of the energy or the frequency that I'm holding about myself and the world. And indeed, as we know, and so it is. So if I decide at a very deep level that that's true, I will find evidence to support that. We now call it confirmation bias, but in New Thought teachings, we talk about thoughts held in mind create after their kind. And really what we're saying, if we go in a little deeper, as I said, is it's really frequency creates reality. So if I'm walking around vibrating with the brokenness that I believe that I am, I will discover that in every situation. And then we end up thinking that if the world could just change, then I could be free. But the reality is, once I'm free, we will see the world change. And in some ways, it's so profoundly simple. And many spiritual teachers have told us this for centuries. Buddha lived over 2,500 years ago and sat under the Bodhi tree to reach enlightenment, and discovered that enlightenment was an inner journey, and discovered that the middle way was something really powerful. And the middle way was that it's not necessarily about the fasting or the meditation, although that can be part of it, that it's actually about being centered in the truth of our being. And so in unity teachings, we have the foundational principle: there is only one power and one presence active in the universe and in my life. And on Sundays, doesn't that sound great? What about if we turn on the TV? What about if we, our partner says something and we have that moment where we find ourselves, oh, How could you say that? It's an indicator that our reaction, our response to life, responsible means our ability to respond. If I find myself in reaction, that's a beautiful thing because that allows me to see where there's an opportunity for deeper healing. So hope is actually this idea that one day it'll be better. And what we know, like I said about in New Thought, is those words hold so much power. So saying hope, I hope for a better future, is saying that something isn't okay right now. And so if you're looking around and saying, but wait a minute, not everything isn't okay right now. There's all these conditions in my life. There's these conditions in the world. How can we say they're okay? The question is, what gets created when I believe there's something wrong here? And what might get created if I were to say, in the midst of this, I have access, as the beautiful reading that David interpreted from the Daily Word, access to an intuition of how to be in the world. And as Jesus said, be in the world, but not of the world. So Buddha tells us that the path to freedom is to move away from clinging and aversion. Putting it into very simple terms, I want more of this because it feels good, and I want less of that because it feels bad. That is the definition of suffering as Buddha has established it. And so the way that we transcend that is to understand that the truth of who and what we are is beyond right and wrong and good and bad. The beautiful Rumi quote that says there is a field out beyond the ideas of right and wrong. There is a field, I will meet you there. And when we think of a field, we might think of a field with beautiful wildflowers, but the field that we're really talking about is the field of consciousness. To be in the consciousness that is beyond the idea of good and bad and right and wrong, beyond the idea of right doing and wrongdoing, there is this field of curiosity, of presence, of openness. And in that way, we understand that fear and hope are actually two sides of the same coin, not now. Fear is, I'm afraid at some point in the future, something is going to happen. And I have a theory about fear. This might not be true for you, but it really rings true for me. Fear isn't really as much about I'm afraid something's going to happen in the future as I'm afraid that something from my past is going to happen again. I'm holding on to the past. I'm holding on to something that feels unresolved, and something in the world reminds me of that. And I think, oh no, not again. And my nervous system starts to go into fight, flight, or freeze, into defending myself, into shutting down, into closing off. That's why I say the greatest freedom we will ever experience is the freedom from the reactive impulse. And the reactive impulse is this innate or deep belief that I must protect myself now. So I must react in some way. I must run away. I must shut down. I must defend. I must lash out. And that reactive impulse comes from a place that feels like there's a wound there, right? My friend Temple Hayes calls it woundology. I love that. When I'm coming from my woundology, I must defend myself. I hold my points of view as the truth, and therefore someone who disagrees with me is wrong. When we're talking about the field, as Rumi was talking about, the field beyond the ideas of right and wrong, if you really hear that, it's not moving beyond right and wrong, it's moving beyond the idea of right and wrong. We are continually told that we live in a polarized country, but the truth is we have been conditioned to have polarized thinking, that I have been deeply conditioned to believe that I am my thoughts, I am my points of view. And therefore, if you disagree with me, what? We can't be together. There's going to be conflict. When we move into a field that is beyond the idea of right and wrong, we then move into a state of curiosity, which to me is the awakened state. I know who I am. I am more than my body. I am more than my emotions. I am more than my thoughts. I have those, but it's not who and what I am. Who and what I am is infinite being. And when I meet myself there, when I'm in that field of consciousness, then I can be in this relative reality with curiosity. I had a conversation with someone recently who said, yes, but the other side is trying to steal our democracy. And I said, I have a feeling if I went to what you're calling the other side, I would find some people that were going to say that about your side. They're trying to steal our democracy. You see, it's all about point of view and perspective, and we've been deeply conditioned to put ourselves into these camps, to find people who agree with us so that we can stay safe. And of course, that came from a very deep need at some point in our conscious evolution. But now we're inviting ourselves to play in this field of consciousness that's beyond the idea of right and wrong and good and bad. Now, for some people, you might say, well, that sounds great, but what about the things that are happening in the world that are horrific? The question that I have is what gets created when we're in the consciousness that that's wrong and I need to come and make it right? So we then are talking about fighting. We're talking about us and them. Those conditions have been prevalent. They've been in the human consciousness, or in unity, what we call race consciousness, meaning the humans' race consciousness, collective consciousness, the agreements, and as Michael Beckwith says, the agreements we've made with mediocrity. War, division, fighting, that is below mediocrity, if you will. And in some ways, we've been conditioned that that's what it means to be human. But if we know that the truth of who and what we are, when we know that, when we have a recognition, we recognize, we remember our own true nature that is beyond all of that, that's what it means to be human. The innate experience of being human and the innate experience of being spiritual actually are one and the same. We came into the world wide open to give and receive love. And for some reason, whether we chose to be here, or it's a fluke, or if we're assigned to be here on planet Earth, we come into a world that teaches us about division. And for many of us, we develop strategies to protect something. And the more broken I feel, the more damaged I feel, the more broken I will see the world. I will see the world as broken and damaged. And so when we talk about activism, a lot of times activism is there's something wrong here and I need to make it right, or I need to be part of the solution. It's so common now. We say things, if you're not doing this, this, or this, you're part of the problem. That's part of the collective consciousness now. And if you really drill into it, what we're really saying is if you don't agree with me, you're part of the problem. And so we can move to this place where we are beyond our opinions, because as we are centered only in our mind, if I believe I am my thoughts, then I'm always going to be in some way in conflict with someone who has a different opinion, a point of view. There was a survey done of Americans some years back, and the number one thing that Americans desire is safety. And yet for some, if you ask people, well, what is safety? You're going to get a lot of different opinions. For some, it's safety is building a wall. For others, it's tearing it down. For some, safety is we need more guns. For others, safety is getting rid of them completely. And when we get to the essence of who and what we are, it's not only that we can, quote, agree to disagree, which has become a popular way to frame it, but instead we can meet each other with curiosity and openness. And when we put down the tug, if there's a tug of war and we choose to not pull on the rope, the tug of war is literally over. It cannot possibly exist. And yet we think if I let go of this, then this could be my point of view, my idea, my political viewpoints, my religious viewpoints. If I have to hold on to this because I hold it so sacred, and look, that person is pulling, I must fight. And yet if we all at the same moment, just imagine for a moment a world where we all say, rather than doing that, I'm going to take an inner journey. What is required within me to heal those places where I still have that hardness, that place where I bristle, that place where I feel like I must defend. And part of that is knowing deeply who and what we are as essentially whole and perfect spiritual beings, literally aspects of the divine. When we know that to be true, then we can look at ourselves through a very different lens. We move beyond forgiveness and into, how can I be at peace now? We move beyond the idea of fear and hope, that two-sided coin, and we say, what am I experiencing now? Who am I really? Course in Miracles says everything is love or a request for love. So as we move out of the idea of everything is love or fear, we can say, I wonder what the deeper request for love is. I know in my own journey, the times that I have caused harm to myself and others, which has been plenty, has always been when I believed I was damaged or broken or limited in some way. And therefore I must, and it's happening unconsciously. I don't think, well, maybe some people do, but I don't know anyone who wakes up and thinks, I hope I hurt a lot of people today. Most of us are so deeply entrenched in our own point of view that we're not necessarily even able to see our own behavior. But when we have a deep connection with the truth of who we are, and we understand that we're not our thoughts, we're not our past, we're not our trauma, we honor all of that has brought us to this moment. But healing can happen instantaneously. Where am I putting my energy? Am I going to continue to hold this narrative about myself and the world and the energy that goes with it? Thought is form. We know that. And that thought form holds a frequency or an energy. So it can become so profoundly simple. What kind of world do I want to live in? Who do I want to be? What kind of world do I want to see? Can I bring that to the world? If I'm going to be an activist, I can be an activist from a place of not, there's these poor people need my help. I must go save them, which many of the models focus on, or this is broken and I need to fix it. But I am you and you are me. And we're having this experience called life. And I can behold the deeper truth in the midst of who and what you are. I'm not here to save anyone. I'm here to serve. And what are we here to serve? We're here to serve this field of consciousness that out beyond right and wrong, beyond hope and fear, there is this field of presence. And the truth of who and what we are is always now. What if this is the most enlightened you'll ever be? What are you going to do with that information? Sometimes I think we think that there's a process. You know, I've been focusing on Buddhism because I spoke this morning at a different spiritual center, and my topic was in unity with Buddhism, looking at how unity principles and Buddhism meet where they meet, and they always meet in love. And Buddha had such a powerful and yet very simple message. I suffer when I have attachments. I suffer when I say, this shouldn't be happening. I shouldn't have done that. She shouldn't have said that to me. So the way we end suffering is we understand deeply who and what we are, and then we meet the world with curiosity. I wonder what the request for love is here. How can I hold a space where we can feel a greater connection? Healing is really wholeness, a return to our own wholeness, a return to the truth of who and what we are. And when we live from this spiritual room, that spiritual room starts to spiritualize our thoughts, spiritualize our bodies, spiritualize our relationships, spiritualize our emotions. We can then welcome all of it. And perhaps that's the greatest gift, that merging of what we have once called spiritual and what we once called human, and understand that it's actually one and the same. Because people will say, well, we're animals. Animals are violent by nature. Look at nature, it's very violent. And look at a precious infant. The truth is, peace is innately who we are. That's the truth of our being. The rest is taught. The rest is taught. We must defend, we must protect, you must find your people. They're the other. And so what I want to close with is a very simple invitation. What kind of world are you seeing right now? What kind of world do you want to see right now? And the invitation is, what within you needs to be healed, released, lived beyond, let go of, whatever word we use, so that we can return to this greater understanding that the truth of who we are is love. And as we hold that projector, we see it everywhere. Can it be that simple? I say yes. So we have come here to be this love, to be this light. And it's a moment-to-moment choice. Perhaps enlightenment is not a process. It's the truth of who and what we are. And in an instant, I can remember that. And that's what I wish for each of us, is that we have enough awareness to simply remind ourselves of the deeper truth. I have thoughts, I'm not my thoughts. I have points of view, I'm not my points of view. I have this body, but it's not who I am. I am love, I am source, I am light. That is the truth of our being. So we go out into the world now expressing that, radiating that, being that. As Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world, not change the world so that you can start to be. And so that's the invitation, and it's profoundly simple. I'm so grateful. Peace and blessings, everyone. Always honored to be here and speak with your community. Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone.
I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single line that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know. Whoa, you say I am loved, but I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong, but I think I am weak. And you say I am held when I am falling short. And when I don't belong, oh, you say I am yours. And I believe, oh, I believe what you say to me. The only thing that matters now is everything you think of me. In you I find my worth, in you I find my identity. Whoa, you say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. And you say I am strong when I think I am weak. And you say I am held when I am falling short. And when I don't belong, oh, you say I am yours. And I believe, oh, I believe what you say to me. I believe. taking all I have, and now I'm laying it at your feet. You have every failure, God. You have every victory. Ooh, oh, you say I am loved, but I can't feel a thing. And you say I am strong when I think I'm weak. And you say I am held when I am falling short. And when I don't belong, oh, you say I am yours, and I believe, oh, I believe what you say to me. Yes, I believe, oh, I believe what you say to me. I believe. I believe. I believe.
Margo. Yeah, Gretchen just said it in the chat. You're so amazing. And thank you for bringing that song to us today. And I just noticed that there's so much duality and polarity represented in that song. It goes well with what TJ was saying. So right now, let's just go within for a moment and just sealing TJ's message and Margo's message, thinking about just the song, how that song is a vibratory frequency, as Michael Beckwith would say. And that's what TJ was saying about moving beyond right and wrong and moving into this field of consciousness. So let's create this field of consciousness here right now with our intention, just lifting our hearts high right now. Whatever our definition of healing and healed and whole is, let's return to that memory of wholeness right now as we think about members in our community, lending them our strength. And so into this vibratory field, this consciousness that we're creating, let's bring along anyone and everyone into this field beyond right and wrong right now. From Iran to Israel to Republican to Democrat to Sudan to Nigeria to Haiti to San Jose. Let's breathe into that with gratitude. And I say, and so it is, and so it is.